15 phrases for speaking polite English. When learning another language, it's easy to make the mistake of being a little bit rude, since you might not be aware of the phrases which sound polite and impolite to native speakers. You already know how to say please, thank you, and excuse me, but here are 15 more ways to make your English sound more polite. Don't say, I want a hamburger. Say, I'd like a hamburger, or I'll have a hamburger, please. I want sounds like a demand, as if you are commanding the other person to fulfill your desires. I'd like is a more polite and diplomatic phrase. When ordering food and drinks, we often use I'll have. I'll have a hamburger, please. Don't say, send me the report. Say, could you send me the report? To maintain good relationships with coworkers, it's best not to use imperatives. That's starting a sentence directly with a verb like reply to my email, go to the bank, finish this project. Instead, make requests with questions, starting with could you and could you please? This is more polite. Don't say, go away, or leave me alone. Instead, say, could you give me a minute? Or, sorry, I'm a bit busy right now. If a colleague approaches you at a bad time and you want the person to leave, don't say, go away, or leave me alone. The phrase, could you give me a minute, is for when you just need a few moments to finish up what you're working on, and then you'll talk with the person. You can use the other phrase, sorry, I'm a bit busy right now, when you're in the middle of work that can't be interrupted. You can follow up with the phrase, can we talk a little later? And agree on a time when you're both available. Don't say, tell me when you're available. Instead, say, let me know when you're available. Let me know is a nicer and more indirect way to say, tell me. It's a casual way to ask for some information. Alternatively, you could simply ask the question, when are you available? Don't say, you're wrong. Instead, say, I think you might be mistaken, or actually, and then give the correct information. Or say, I'm afraid I disagree. When pointing out someone's mistake, it's best to use a more indirect phrase, because you're wrong is very direct and the other person might feel bad or get defensive. I think you might be mistaken is a more humble phrase, allowing for the possibility that you might be wrong about the other person's error too. The word actually is used to correct an error and then give the correct information, without specifically saying that the other person was wrong. Finally, if it's a matter of opinion, you can use the last phrase, I'm afraid I disagree. Don't say, that's a bad idea. Instead, say, I'm not so sure that's a good idea, or I have a few concerns. Instead of using strong and direct words like bad, it's more polite to say, I'm not so sure that's a good idea. Another option is to state your specific objections by pointing them out as concerns, saying, I have a few concerns. Don't say, your work isn't good. Instead, say, I'm not quite satisfied with this work, or, to be honest, this needs some improvement. One of the hardest things to do is telling somebody that their work doesn't meet the standards or expectations. But you can make it easier for the other person to accept by using a polite phrase, like, I'm not quite satisfied with this work. The phrase, to be honest, is used when you are going to state an opinion that other people might not like very much. Don't say, I don't like the colors in this design. Instead, say, I'm not too fond of the colors in this design, or I'd prefer to use different colors in this design. When reviewing work, avoid statements like I don't like. Instead, you can use a more indirect form like I'm not too fond of or I'm not a fan of. Another option is to state what you want to see instead by using the phrases I'd prefer or I'd rather. Polite English is especially important if you're learning English for your job or career. You want to have good relationships with coworkers, make a positive impression on clients, and sound pleasant during interviews. Difficult English vocabulary quiz. Do you think you have a good understanding of English vocabulary? Today's lesson is a challenging quiz to test your knowledge. Choose the best word to complete each sentence. You'll have 5 seconds to answer. Then keep watching and I'll show you the correct answer. Okay, let's get started. Number 1. This medicine is from a tropical plant. A. Deprived, B. Derived, or C. Derisive. The correct answer is B. Derived. This medicine is derived from a tropical plant. If something is derived from something else, it means it came from there. It originated there. Number 2. The new law will the entire community. Everyone will be affected. A. Impact, B. Impede, C. Impress. The correct answer is A. Impact. The new law will impact the entire community. Everyone will be affected. The verb impact means to affect something. Number 3. My coworker was fired for accessing the manager's computer without his A. Consensus, B. Consent, or C. Contempt. The correct answer is B. Consent. My coworker was fired for accessing the manager's computer without his consent. Consent is another word for permission. It can be used as a noun or a verb. Number 4. Your idea was good in theory. There were just a few problems with the A. Implantation, B. Implementation, or C. Implication. The correct answer is B. Implementation. Your idea was good in theory. There were just a few problems with the implementation. Implementation refers to putting things into practice. Number 5. As a teacher, my primary concern is the of my students. A. Welcome, B. Well off, or C. Welfare. The correct answer is C. Welfare. As a teacher, my primary concern is the welfare of my students. Welfare is another word for well-being, referring to general health and happiness. Number 6. Your performance, our expectations. Good job. A. Exceeded, B. Excelled, or C. Accept. The correct answer is A. Exceeded. Your performance exceeded our expectations. Good job. To exceed means to be more than or higher than a certain level. Number 7. Senator Jones is an for a higher minimum wage. She says everyone deserves to make a fair living. A. Adversary, B. Advisor, or C. Advocate. The correct answer is C. Advocate. If you are an advocate for a cause, it means you support that cause and work to make it happen. Number 8. If you don't stop overspending, you'll run out of money. A. Inestimably, B. Inevitably, or C. Inexhaustibly. The correct answer is B. Inevitably. If you don't stop overspending, you'll inevitably run out of money. If something is inevitable, it means it is impossible to avoid. It will definitely happen. Number 9. Fortunately, the storm caused only damage to the building. A. Minimal, B. Minimize, or C. Minimum. The correct answer is A. Minimal. Fortunately, the storm caused only minimal damage to the building. If something is minimal, it means it is very small. Number 10. I wasn't feeling well, so I was to go to the party. A. Reliant, B. Relinquished, or C. Reluctant. The correct answer is C. Reluctant. I wasn't feeling well, so I was reluctant to go to the party. If you are reluctant to do something, it means you don't want to do it, so you hesitate. How did you do? Leave a comment under this video with your score. If you can improve your vocabulary, you'll have a lot more ways to express yourself in English. You'll be able to say exactly what you want, instead of trying desperately to think of the right word. Sometimes students ask me for lists of the most common words in English, but I don't think memorizing lists is the best way to study. Instead, you should learn words in context, in families, topics, and with visual aids, pictures. What's even more important is to practice the new words so that you don't forget them. Thanks for watching, and I hope you enjoyed today's lesson.